Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a project that was honestly always destined to make some serious waves. We are exploring the 2026 musical biographical drama, Michael. Bringing the king of pop story to the big screen is a monumental task, to say the least. It's a project that demands we look at the music that literally defined generations, while simultaneously navigating a deeply complex personal legacy. We're going to break down exactly how this film came together, what actually made it into the final cut, and the incredible divide it created the second it was released.
So, it's the ultimate question, right? How exactly do you capture a legend on film? The story of Michael is really the tale of two completely different realities. On one side, you have the film's undeniable record-breaking commercial success. Audiences absolutely flocked to theaters. But on the other side, you have a turbulent, incredibly polarizing production process and a fierce critical debate about what a biopic actually owes to history. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at The King of Pop returns, casting the Jackson family, rewrites and controversy, a box office smash, the critical divide, and finally, his story continues. All right, Section 1, The King of Pop returns. The movie maps out Michael Jackson's early life, taking us all the way from those grueling 1960s rehearsals and the rise of the Jackson 5 in Gary, Indiana, straight through to his massive solo explosion and the dawn of the Bad Tour in the late 1980s.
To tackle a massive timeline like that, Lionsgate and Universal brought in a true heavyweight creative team. We've got Antoine Fuqua in the director's chair, who is, of course, known for some incredibly gripping dramas. The script was penned by John Logan, a writer with just an incredible pedigree, and steering the whole ship is producer Graham King. Now, King actually spent years just securing the rights from the Michael Jackson estate, and he interviewed hundreds of people who knew Jackson to prepare for this. They were really aiming for a comprehensive look at the man behind the music.
Which brings us to Section 2, casting the Jackson family. Now think about the immense pressure here. You're trying to find actors to portray real-life musical icons. These are figures whose faces and voices are permanently etched into our cultural memory. Because of that, the casting process alone took over 2 years to get right.
And just look at this massive, star-studded ensemble they built. Anchoring the whole thing is Jaafar Jackson, Michael's own real-life nephew, making his feature film debut as the King of Pop. Newcomer Giuliano Cruvaldi steps in as young Michael, and they're supported by some phenomenal talents. We have Coleman Domingo as the demanding patriarch Joseph Jackson, Nia Long as Catherine Jackson, and Miles Teller as Michael's attorney John Branca.
But, casting a family member doesn't necessarily mean the entire family's in agreement. It actually created a really fascinating split. Catherine Jackson gave her resounding approval. She said her grandson Jaafar truly embodies her son. However, Michael's daughter, Paris Jackson, heavily criticized the production. She took issue with the high costs associated with casting big-name actors like Miles Teller, seeing it as a drain on the estate's assets. And she even went on the record calling early drafts of the script sugar-coated.
Okay, Section 3, Rewrites and Controversy. Paris Jackson's comments on the script actually lead us right into the intense behind-the-scenes legal constraints. Constraints that completely alter the trajectory and ultimately the final cut of this movie.
So, the original script actually opened right in the middle of the action in 1993 as police arrived at Neverland Ranch following the first child sexual abuse allegations. And the film's third act heavily dealt with the fallout of those allegations. But get this. During production, a legal clause was discovered from a past settlement with Jordan Chandler, forbidding any mention of Chandler on film. Because of this, all references to the 1993 allegations had to be completely ripped out of the script. This forced a massive pivot, requiring extensive reshoots in June 2025 to create a brand new ending. So the final film we see in theaters now ends much earlier, in 1987, right as Jackson begins his Bad Tour, well before any of those allegations arose.
And as you might guess, reshooting an entire third act, not cheap. The financial impact was massive. Those June 2025 reshoots, which were actually partially funded by the Jackson estate, pushed the total production budget up to an estimated $165 to $200 million. That officially makes it one of the most expensive musical biopics ever produced.
Moving on to Section 4. A box office smash. With a budget skyrocketing like that, the stakes for its April 2026 release were just astronomical. But if there's one thing this film proved immediately, it's the enduring, global power of the Michael Jackson catalog.
The hype was absolutely undeniable. When Lionsgate dropped the teaser trailer, which featured this awesome mashup of Jackson's biggest hits, it racked up a record-breaking 116.2 million views in just 24 hours. To put that into perspective for you, that officially surpassed the previous record held by Taylor Swift's Eras Tour trailer. The world was clearly watching.
And those trailer views translated directly into ticket sales. The film became an absolute box office smash. It pulled in $184 million in the US and Canada, plus another $240 million internationally. That is a massive $424 million worldwide gross. It made it the fourth highest grossing film of 2026 and set an all-time opening weekend record for both a biographical and a musical film. Financially, it was a total home run.
But here's where things get complicated. Section 5, the critical divide. Because there was this huge, glaring disconnect between the people buying the tickets and the people writing the reviews.
Just look at these metrics, they paint such a clear picture. On one side, you have critics handing out a dismal 39% on Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic, but then look at the audiences, a glowing A- on CinemaScore and a 90% positive rating on PostTrack. The audiences were walking out of theaters completely thrilled, while the critics were left deeply unsatisfied.
And the critics were not holding back. One reviewer from RogerEbert.com literally summed it up by calling it, quote, a filmed playlist in search of a story. Ouch, right? They heavily penalized the film for what they saw as a highly sanitized narrative. They argued it was just shallow cruise ship entertainment that, by ending in 1987, completely refused to address the controversies, the allegations, and the real sadness that defined his later life.
But flip the coin, and you have the film's defenders. Pete Hammond over at Deadline wrote, "You are bound to leave this one dancing. And what is wrong with that?" Defenders praised Jaafar Jackson's genuinely uncanny performance. I mean, he captured the electrostatic moves and the voice of his uncle perfectly. They argued that for a lot of viewers, the goal of a film like this isn't to be a gritty investigative documentary. It's simply an opportunity to celebrate the sheer genius of the music.
Which brings us to our final act, Section 6, His Story Continues. Because, in Hollywood, at the end of the day, commercial success is what dictates the future.
Thanks to that $424 million payday, Lionsgate officially greenlit a sequel. Remember how the production team originally had a 4-hour cut of the film before those legal rewrites forced them to change the ending? Well, they have roughly 30% of unused material just sitting there, already shot. Director Antoine Fuqua confirmed they have more than enough footage to support a sequel that will cover Jackson's later life. That commercial victory made the continuation of the story an absolute certainty.
So that leaves us with this final, really compelling thought. As we wait for the sequel, we got to ask ourselves, can a highly authorized, blockbuster musical biopic ever truly tell the whole truth about such a deeply complex legacy? Or, when the lights go down and the music starts playing, do we really just want to dance? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you on the next one.